This is Dan, and this is the Napkin Academy. This lesson is going to relate to our process step of seeing, specifically seeing problems, and we're going to call this the business language to visual language translator. We spent the last lesson talking about how, if we want to be better at seeing problems, it helps us to use a six-dimensional coordinate system that rates out the types of problems we face as who and what problems, how much problems, where problems, when problems, how problems, and why problems. And I told you that this was going to be a very useful tool for thinking about all kinds of problems that we face in business. And yet, we might be looking at this and saying, how come we've never seen this before? We've all read lots of business books, and we've all been through lots of business training, and we've never seen anything like a simple who and what and where and when and how and why. What is this all about? How is this model going to relate to the kind of stuff that we study and that we do every day? When we read, study, or talk about business, we find that the terms we use tend to be apparently very specific. Things like strategic positioning, things like change management, terms like brand equity. We need to do marketing segmentation. We need to make sure that we're being effective in financial leverage. We need to think about succession planning. These are the kinds of terms that we find in the real world of business. So how do any of these relate to this kind of six-dimensional who, what, where, when, why model in any sort of a meaningful way? Well, they really do. And I think that it's useful for us to not think about business terms in the sense of what does this fairly complex jargon mean? But I think we're going to be much better at solving the kind of problem that something like marketing segmentation really means if we think about what does it really mean. Market segmentation. What is that? We could talk about customers and segmenting our customers. We could talk about markets. What in the end are we really talking about? We're talking about two things with market segmentation. We are talking about who are our customers and what do they want. We're really talking about a very simple who and what type of a question. Now, it's useful to think about market segmentation because that means a lot of things, but it's also equally useful, and I think more useful, to break this down into its component pieces so that we can see it and think about it more effectively. Marketing segmentation is really who are our customers, what do they do? Let's talk about something like financial leverage. What is that really about? Isn't financial leverage really a question of how much money do we have? Where is our money in place? How much do we need? How far below some break-even point are we? Or how far above some break-even point are we? Isn't financial leverage, and almost any term that has to do with finance, in the end, really just a question, at its most simple way, of how much? We think about questions of strategic positioning. What is that really about? Well, isn't strategic positioning really about saying, according to some sort of coordinate system that has to do with business, something about the future, something about products, we are in our competitive landscape here, our other competitor is here, another competitor might be here. Strategic positioning, isn't it in the end really a map of where we are in relation to our competitors? Isn't strategic positioning really about some kind of competitive landscape? And when we think about a landscape, aren't we really thinking about where the pieces are? And if we think about something like succession planning or even transitions planning or strategic planning, aren't we in a way really talking about questions of when? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? When are we going to take care of this other thing before some end point happens? Isn't really all of this about planning, really trying to map out what's going to happen first and what's going to happen next and what's going to happen next and so on? Aren't we really talking about questions of when? And if we look at change management, what are we really talking about? Aren't we talking about how we're going to go about moving from here to here? Aren't we really talking about how? Isn't change management really about the process of managing process? And how are we going to get from here to here? And if we think about something like brand equity, aren't we in the end really thinking about why does our company exist at all? Why are we even here? If we don't have a brand, if we don't know who we are and how many of us there are and where we are and when we're doing the things that we're doing and how we're going to do them, if we add all those up, don't we have the why of why our business exists at all? Isn't that what we really mean when we talk about building a brand and building powerful equity that people believe in? The point I want to make is that business speak matters. It really does. Because as business people and as working with colleagues who are business people, we are going to use these kinds of terms all the time, and they really do mean something. But when it comes to, again, that eternal issue of taking something that's challenging and making it so that we can all see it and see exactly what each other is talking about, I think it makes much more sense if we learn how to take the various types of jargon and challenges and problems that we have and break them down into the simplest common language. And that is going to become our business to visual translator.